Good evening, everyone. Time for another silver update. This is an article that I posted today on the membership site called The Greatest Trick. And this chart here I want to show you is a overlay of silver quoted in the Japanese yen on top of the Nikkei 225 average. That's the largest stock index in Japan. Now, you can see from this chart that over the course of roughly 17 years, this starts in about January of 1996, the Nikkei average is down about 25 to 30%, whereas silver is up 406% over the same period of time. Now, if you average that out, 406% comes to roughly a 9% per year return. That number is very interesting because if you remember in the Madoff case, there was clawback provisions enacted by the judge in that case. The judge, when he enacted clawback provisions, now what they were the people who had invested early in that Ponzi scheme got back all of their investment and more. And what the judge did was he clawed back a certain amount of money from those people, and the basis of that was, in fact, the stated reason that the judge gave was that people who invested in a fund that returned more than 8% year after year after year should know by definition that they're investing in a Ponzi scheme. So that was his basis. Now, the reason why that's fascinating, we're going to see here when we look at the Silver Doctor's article, but we can see here from the silver chart that silver has actually returned that for the Japanese yen. I'm sure the dollar figure is very close to that. So we've got a 9% return in silver, so it is possible the judge was wrong. And then we've also got pension fund managers who are stating that they can get 8% return, or at least that's the assumption that their returns are based on. So very interesting numbers. Now let's look at some of these stories here. The first one is from Zero Hedge. Poland confiscates half of private pension funds to cut sovereign debt load. While the world was glued to the developments in the Mediterranean in the past week, Poland took a page straight out of Rahm Emanuel's playbook, and in order to not let a crisis go to waste, announced quietly that it would transfer to the state, i.e. confiscate, the bulk of assets owned by the country's private pension funds. Many of them owned by such foreign firms as PIMCO, Parent Alliance, AXA, Generali, ING, Aviva, without offering any compensation. In effect, the state just nationalized roughly half of the private sector pension fund assets. Although it had a more politically correct name for it, pension overhaul. By way of background, Poland has a hybrid pension system. As Reuters explains, mandatory contributions are made into both the state pension vehicle known as ZUS and the private pension funds, which are collectively known by the Polish acronym OFE. Bonds make up roughly half the private funds portfolio, with the rest company stocks. And while a change to state pension funds was long awaited, an overhaul, if you will, nobody expected that this would entail a literal pillage of private sector assets. Now, I've been warning people literally for years on my videos and my blog the last 2, 3, 4 years, but personally with friends that I know, I've been warning people for 10, 15 years. This is coming. They're going to take the money. It's not possible for them to pay out what they've promised. The money isn't there. The politicians have made promises that they can't keep. Now, we initially believed that the way out that they were going to find was going to be hyperinflation. In the past, that had been the case. There were many people who had pensions. Weimar Germany is a good example where the pensions ended up buying a loaf of bread, an entire month pension. So that was the expected outcome that everybody well, the majority in the silver stacking community was expecting that they would use inflation and hyperinflation to get out of it. But with Cyprus and now with Poland, and we've had a few others, it seems that they're going to try to confiscate the monies. So I've been warning for the longest time that your retirement should probably be in silver or gold, physical silver or gold, or something tangible, because if your retirement is based on promises, those promises are going to be broken. And the reason why those promises are going to be broken is because they've made too many promises for the amount of money that's out there. Now, let's take a look at the Social Security issue. This is an article from Forbes, and it comes from a while back. Someone linked it on Zero Hedge, but I find it fascinating that we have Obama on the one hand. Now, we're going to have this debt ceiling issue come up again here very, very soon. The fiscal year, I believe, ends at the end of September, and they're going to have a new budget. They're going to have to lift the debt ceiling. So we're going to revisit this debate. But the last time we had a crisis, if you remember, President Obama immediately threatened taking Social Security retirement monies, not paying them. Now, that's very similar to what you see on in the local governments. You see, anytime the taxpayers revolt and try to pass bills or fail to pass levies that increase their taxes, and the first thing the local governments threaten to cut is police and fire. That's how it works on the national scale. They threaten to cut the old people off. So that's what Barack Obama did. And you had Jack Lew on the other side, as I'm going to read here. This article points out. Here's how President Barack Obama answered CBS Scott Pelley's question about whether he could guarantee that Social Security checks would go out on August 3rd, the day after the government is supposed to reach its debt limit. Quote, I cannot guarantee that those checks, he included veterans and disabled in addition to Social Security, go out on August 3rd if we haven't resolved the issue, because there may simply not be the money in the coffers to do it, end quote. And Treasury Secretary Timothy Geithner echoed the president on CBS Face the Nation, implying that if a budget deal isn't reached by August 2nd, seniors might not get their Social Security checks. Well, either Obama and Geithner are lying to us now, or they and all the defenders of Social Security status quo have been lying to us for decades. It must be one or the other. Here's why. Social Security has a trust fund, and that trust fund is supposed to have $2.6 trillion in it, according to the Social Security trustees. If there are real assets in the trust fund, then Social Security can mail the checks regardless of what Congress does about the debt limit. President Obama's budget director and now Treasury Secretary Jack Lew explained all this last February in U.S. Today. Quote, Social Security benefits are entirely self-financing. They are paid for with payroll taxes collected from workers and their employers throughout their careers. These taxes are placed in a trust fund dedicated to paying benefits owed to current and future beneficiaries. Even though Social Security began collecting less in taxes than it paid for in benefits in 2010, the trust fund will continue to accrue interest and grow until 2025 and will have adequate resources to pay full benefits for the next 26 years. Now that's a direct quote from Jack Lew. And Jack Lew is the one that replaced Geithner. So you can read this article. It goes on. There's an obvious contradiction there. The fact is that they've already taken the money. There isn't a Social Security trust fund. And the fact of that is proven by Barack Obama's threat the last time we went through this thing that, well, we don't know if we're going to mail out the Social Security checks if we don't get this thing resolved. So there's another example. They've already stolen the money. They've stolen the Social Security money. They've stolen most of the pension money. Now, here's an article from Silver Doctors. This is on the new site. This is the newsdoctors.com. I encourage you to go to his site. He's doing a news blog in addition to his Silver Doctor site. And this is exclusive on the News Doctors. Eric Boehm, a new assessment of state pension obligations suggests the problem is even worse than it already appears. How much worse? Using a more conservative method of accounting for financial gains in the marketplace, there's a $4.1 trillion gap between assets and liabilities, known as the unfunded liability of all state-level pension systems in the United States, according to State Budget Solutions, a fiscally conservative think tank that deals with tax and spending issues at the state level. On a per capita basis, each American would have to fork over about $13,000 to fill that gap and fulfill the promises made to current and retired state workers. The new survey makes the pension crisis look worse than in other reports because of the way State Budget Solutions calculates the plan's unfunded liabilities. The group uses a measure called market value liability, which assumes that pension funds will earn about 3.22% annually, in line with what long-term Treasury bonds pay. That measure is more accurate than often bloated assumptions. Sorry about that. Bloated assumptions that underpin most state pension plans, Euclidou said. So there you go. Back to that same assumption I was talking about. They're assuming many states use an assumed return rate of 7 or 8%. Though some are beginning to adjust those expectations downward, but every time the investments miss the mark, it widens the gap between the pension fund's assets and liabilities. So this is happening everywhere. With Social Security, they've already stolen the money. With Poland, they're in the process of stealing the money. And with the state pension funds, they're just simply lying about the money. So the fact is that real assets, silver and gold, they're really only going to be the retirement that lasts. All of these other retirements that people are investing in, the money is either stolen, it doesn't exist, it never was there, it's a lie, or they're going to take it in the future. So if you're going to plan for your retirement, then you probably want to have a significant percentage of your retirement saved in silver. If you think about the price of silver as it is right now, and I covered that in the article on the member site, if you think about the price of silver, whether quoted in yen or quoted in dollars, at $24 for silver, you're talking about a price that's so low that in my mind it's something akin to the nickel. Now, I've bought quite a few nickels just for a lark, but if you go out there, there's still nickels available. You can get a nickel for 5 cents, and the amount of metal in it is worth more than 5 cents. If the nickel goes down the metal goes down in value, then you can still sell your nickel for a nickel. If it goes up, then obviously they're going to stop making them. At some point, a nickel will be worth a quarter, a dollar, or whatever. So the nickel is something that has a base on it. It can't go below. I think silver is very close to that. Certainly, literally, with the Silver Eagle, which I believe has a $5 face value, it can't go below $5. So you're certainly not going to lose 100% of your money, as the Social Security Trust Fund has already lost 100% of the money. The money's gone. The most you can lose with silver at the current price is 80%, but at a $24 price, investing in silver for your retirement is a very wise thing to do. And we'll talk to you next time.